All right, so hi everyone, good morning or good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us today at Microsoft Purview Days 2023. And we are here to showcase our session onto graph notifications. It is kind of again one of the better way to go ahead and process all of your audit logs. Okay, so we will be talking more on that. But quickly, like this one is a one-day virtual event wherein we have hands-on sessions by expert as well as community leaders, wherein we will deep dive into the Microsoft Purview solutions and related technologies. At the same time, this event is supporting a cause, so please feel free to support the Don Bosco Navjivan Society to create more impact. All right, so with that, let's get started with our session. The session is all about graph notifications, like what are the better ways to process Microsoft 365 audit logs. Okay, so whenever we talk about Microsoft 365 as an environment, we have various app services which are running various types of user, specific users or users with specific roles or maybe admin users. So they do lot many activities throughout the day onto the Microsoft 365. And then again, most of the times it is pretty much critical to go ahead, find out that information which is pertaining to any of the activity that had happened in the past. Okay, so again, this Microsoft 365 usage is increasing very hugely, and with the increase in usage day by day, it also increases the challenges to monitor this Microsoft 365 environment for its usage. So there are various products, tools, as well as ways available to monitor the user as well as admin activities in Microsoft 365. So we are going to discuss all those ways. For example, if you have been using Microsoft Sentinel, it is one of the best way to go ahead and use that. So Sentinel is one of the widely used product for monitoring Microsoft 365 environment for its usage. However, if you are looking for a quick solution to respond to the events happening at Microsoft 365, then in that case, probably graph notifications provide you with quick way to respond to those without investing more onto the infrastructure side of it. So in this session, we are going to touch base upon Microsoft Sentinel approach, but we are going to deep dive into the Microsoft Graph notifications approach that we have got there. All right, so let's get started, and then this is the agenda that we have got for today. So we will be seeing like how it is very much important to go ahead and monitor your Microsoft 365 environments. Then we will also have a look at the Microsoft 365 audit logs retention. We will quickly touch base upon the Microsoft Sentinel, and then we will discuss the differences between pull versus push mechanism whenever we want to go ahead and process all those audit logs. And then we will deep dive into our session of change notifications. And then there we will take one scenario of how we can go ahead and handle the Teams channel creation with this kind of a graph notification using Azure functions. All right. So before we start, a quick introduction. Myself, Nandadeep Nathan. I'm Microsoft MVP for M365 Apps and Services, Microsoft Certified Trainer, author of three books, including SharePoint, SharePoint Framework, as well as Microsoft Viva Connections. And onto the right hand side, here are few of my social media handles to get in touch with me. And with me today is Smita.
Hello all, myself Smita Nasen and greetings from Pune, India. I'm a Microsoft MVP for M365 development category. Apart from that, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, author of two books which are published with A Press publication, and these are my social handlers by which you can get in touch with me. So now let's see what are the challenges with Office 65 environment monitoring. So as a large number of users are using various Office 65 apps and services, including the Exchange, SharePoint, and Microsoft Teams. So it is very much essential to keep a track of user activities. So Office 65 offers a various fine-grained roles and administrators who can perform a various activity to certain apps and services by modifying the tenant or the application setting, such as enable the external sharing, set authentication mode, network settings, and many more, which may impose a security risk also. So you can use the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center to search the unified audit log to view the user and administrator activities in your organizations. So you can search for various type of user and admin activity in Microsoft 365, including a SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate, Microsoft Teams, Dynamic 365, Yammer, Microsoft Stream, Microsoft Workplace Analytics, Microsoft Forms, and sensitivity labels for the site that use SharePoint Online or Microsoft Teams. So the audit log search is turned on by default for Microsoft 365 and Office 365 enterprise organizations. So you have to be assigned the view only audit logs or audit logs role in Exchange Online to search the audit log. So by default, these roles are assigned to the compliance management and organization management role group on the permission page in the Exchange Admin Center. So to give a user the ability to search the audit log with the minimum level of privileges, you can create a custom role group in the Exchange Online, add the view only audit logs or audit logs, and then add the user as a member for the new role group.
All right. So with that, let's have a look at quick demo of from where we can go ahead and monitor those audit logs from the compliance center. So let me just quickly bring my um, Microsoft 365 environment. So this is a place like security.microsoft.com. Probably this is a place from where you will be able to go ahead and monitor all of the audits. So this is a place from where we'll be able to go ahead monitor all of those audit logs. So if you observe this particular page, we have got the classic search, which is kind of undeprecating now, and we have this new search coming up, through which what we can do is we can specify the date time range when that particular event had happened. We can specify any of the activities that we want to go ahead and start monitoring, then the record type, workload, as well as, for example, if you're specifically looking out for a user that perform that particular activity, we'll be able to go ahead and search that one as well. So let's say, for example, I just want to see like what had happened from yesterday till today, maybe for Microsoft Teams when one of the channel got created. So I can choose this activity. Okay, it's still loading. Okay, it's slow. Okay, as soon as I will try to search all of the activities which are available for channel. So here you can see that add channel, delete channel, all those kind of things. So let's say, for example, we want to specifically monitor for all of the channels that are getting under Microsoft Teams. So maybe the kind of a business case here could be like whenever any of the channel gets created under any of the team which is labeled as a secret team. Probably if you want to monitor like what are the activities which are going under that channel. So that is one of the use case wherein we want to go ahead and specifically look out for the events of channel being added to the Microsoft Teams. And then that's it. We can just simply go ahead and click search, and this one will definitely take some time. Only thing like at least as of now in my tenant, it is pretty much simple tenant. I just have got only 5 users who are probably not that much of active. That's the reason you can see that we will be able to get the result very much quickly. But for example, in your organization, when there are lot many number of users, definitely these kind of things are going to take a time. And whenever we are dealing with security compliance, those kind of thing, we need to act fast. We cannot wait until the event has happened, the time has gone until we are searching that through the audit logs, and then we will act when we will get to know that something had happened into this audit log, maybe after half an hour or 1 hour. So probably in that case, we already have lost 1 hour, right? But yeah, Miss, quickly, like this is the place to go ahead, start monitoring all of your audit logs from the Security and Compliance Center. All right, so with that, let's move ahead and see like what are those audit logs retentions in this case.
The Microsoft 365 audit logs tracks every user and account action across all of the Office 365 services. So when an audited activity is performed by a user or admin, an audit log record is generated and stored in the audit log for your organization. So for the users, assign an Office 365 E5 or Microsoft 365 E5 licenses, or users with a Microsoft 365 E5 compliance or Microsoft 365 E5 e-discovery and audit add-on license. So the audit reports for Azure Active Directory, Exchange, and SharePoint actively are trained for 1 year by default. For users, assign any other like a non E5, Office 65 or Microsoft 365 license, audit records are retained for 90 days. So let's see why we need these Office 65 logs. So Microsoft 365 monitors most of these activities performed by users and administrators and logs those under the Security and Compliance Center. So however, these logs are available for 90 days only. So for auditing and historic purpose, we should store this log somewhere and Azure Sentinel comes in handy here. So companies' governance policies require that users should access regulated documents using the company's secure VPN. So from the audit logs, we can monitor how and from where employees are downloading these sensitive documents from SharePoint Online or OneDrive for Business. So the organizations can easily apply a legal hold on the search results and prepare for the legal unit.
All right. So meanwhile, there is a question in the chat like, is it a best practice to give end users read-only permission onto the unified audit logs? So definitely don't do that, because once you will open up everything for your end users, like what everyone is doing into the audit logs, probably you are making your organizations into some kind of a security risk, because there is no as a security risk, but mostly this one is your PII kind of a data. Like from here, once you have access to the audit logs, anyone will be able to come to know what has happened in the past, who created what. So let's say, for example, I pretty much want to know like what Iago, who asked the question, probably I pronounce your now pronounce your name correctly. So I just want to know like what you did for you yesterday. I should be able to get all that details, right? So probably it won't be a best practice to give end users read-only permission to unified logs. Maybe just your administrator, or mainly this part is very much useful for the persons who are working onto the legal activities, who are mostly involved into the legal holds, legal matters, all of those kind of users who should have basically all those kind of rights to go ahead and look into the audit logs, because audit logs will contain everything what all of your users have done, all of your administrators have done, right? So treat that with confidentiality. All right, thank you.
So let's see now this Microsoft Sentinel overview. So the Microsoft Azure Sentinel is a scalable cloud native security information event management that is called as SIEM, and the security orchestration automated response that is a source solution. So the Azure Sentinel delivers intelligent security analytics and threat intelligence across the enterprise, providing a single solution for alert detection, threat visibility, proactive hunting, and the threat response. So also this Azure Sentinel help us to collect the data at a cloud scale across all the users, devices, applications, and the infrastructure for the both on premises as well as in multiple clouds. It also detects the previously undetected threats and minimize the false positives using a Microsoft Analytics and unparalleled threat intelligence. It's also help us to investigate the threats with artificial intelligence AI and hunt for suspicious activities as a scale, tapping into the years of cybersecurity work at Microsoft. It also helps us to respond to the incidents rapidly with built-in orchestration and automation of common tasks.
All right, so with that, let's see like how this how we can connect to Microsoft 365 audit logs, and from Microsoft Sentinel. So onto the right hand side, oh sorry, onto the left hand side, that you can see that we have this Office 65 or Microsoft 365 environment, wherein we are using various apps and services, including OneDrive, SharePoint, Exchange, Team, Yammer, and many more, right? So whenever we have this many apps and services, obviously we have got many users, many specific role specified users, as well as administrator who are performing those roles on a daily basis. So what can happen is like all of those user activities as well as the admin activities, they get stored onto your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 audit logs. And then we have this based on kind of a subscription that we have got, these audit logs are going to stay there for 90 days or maybe for 1 year. But after the fact, for example, if you want to travel back into the history, maybe 2 years back or 5 years back, probably we won't be able to get that information from the Microsoft 365 audit logs, even with what kind of a subscription that we have got, because the maximum retention time here is 1 year. All right, so in that case, what we can do is for the Azure Sentinel, or maybe for the Microsoft Sentinel, we have got something called as an Microsoft 365 data connector. So through which it can help us to pull out all of the audit logs which are happening into your Microsoft 365 environment into Azure Sentinel. So whenever we'll go ahead and set up Azure Sentinel, it by default comes up with something called as an log analytics workspace. So all of your logs, they get transported into the log analytic workspace where they are analyzed, and then Azure Sentinel with its AI capabilities start detecting all those threads probably which is happening through the audit Microsoft 365 audit logs. So let's say, for example, if someone is deleting multiple documents at one time, or maybe it can also detect like someone has started sharing most of the documents externally. So it can detect all those kind of an potential threats, and then again with the help of incidents which are being part of this Microsoft Sentinel, also we can go ahead and then start reporting those for our users. So this Microsoft Sentinel provides kind of an connector to connect your data in various systems, including Microsoft 365 Defender, which was also formerly known as Microsoft Threat Protection Solution, and Microsoft 365 sources, including your Microsoft 365 Azure AD, Microsoft Defender for Identity, or maybe you can call it as Azure ATP in the past, as well as Microsoft Cloud App Security. So all those things can happen from here. Okay, so if in case you are looking out for a best solution to go ahead and act proactively onto your activities happening through Microsoft audit logs, in that case, definitely go ahead with Microsoft Sentinel. But again, one thing that obviously this one cost very much more, because there is a cost associated with Microsoft Sentinel, as well as there is a storage cost of storing all those Microsoft 365 audit logs. But this one definitely gives you a better solution to go ahead and start using that. Now that we are going to discuss about, let's say, for example, we have audit logs, but probably we don't want to invest that much huge for processing those, but we want to still quickly go ahead and start analyzing everything which is happening into the Microsoft 365 environment, and then we need to act very much quickly. So in that case, what we can do is there are still two mechanisms that we can go ahead and start using or start implementing here. So there is something called as a push mechanism, and there is something called as a pull mechanism. So even by the name that you can easily understand, like pull, that means we want to get the data from somewhere at a periodic time. Push mechanism is wherein we probably don't need to pull that particular system or pull that particular system for a longer duration of time. Okay, so it is just like, for example, you want to check the availability of newer mobile into the market. So in that case, there are two approaches that you can go and purchase the mobile. Like probably you can keep checking with the vendor for the availability of that new model of mobile. So that means you will keep going to that vendor for once in a day or twice in a day to see that. Or secondly, what you can do is you can just ask that vendor to call you whenever that mobile is available. Okay, so that is the simple difference between pull and push mechanism. So based on what kind of a scenario you want to go ahead implement, you can go ahead either with pull mechanism or push mechanism. Okay, so there are these two possible ways while approaching the business scenarios that need looking at the audit logs for user as well as admin activities, that is pull and push mechanism. At the same time, each of this one has got its own pros and cons. So let us start our discussion by discussing more about this pull mechanism. So pull mechanism, that means we need to go ahead, pull out the data from audit logs by looking at it. So all of the user as well as admin activities in Microsoft 365 is getting recorded into these audit logs. And one can pull the information from audit logs as needed by running maybe a timer job. And while you can decide your own schedule to pull the audit logs, this does not offer a real-time event handling. right? So also sometimes retrieving the audit logs, for example, search hyphen unit unified audit logs, this kind of an commands you must be familiar to go ahead and pull the data from the audit logs. Okay, so this may time out. So while I was in the session, the prior session, I saw one message like someone is using Power BI, and then they have got almost 60,000 users, and most of the time they see that there is a lag, or there is a too much of time that they need to wait until they get all those audit logs. But in that case as well, I will say that you are still lucky that you just need to wait for some more time and you are getting the audit logs. But just think of the organizations where we have got maybe 600 thousands of users, okay, not just 60,000, 600 thousands of users. So in that case, we have observed this in real time, that this search hyphen audit unified audit logs, or pulling the data from audit logs, it fails. Okay, so it simply times out. It doesn't give you any of the results. So there are obviously potential implications of this. So let's say, for example, you are working on a business critical kind of an applications where you need to go ahead and have a hookup to the specific kind of an activities which is happening in Microsoft 365. So let's say, for example, the channel created, that was the business case that we discussed in the past. So if we miss out on even one of the channel, obviously there will be a business implication of it when it comes to the real world scenario. So that means we need to process the audit logs whenever each and every activity is happening. So for example, maybe if you're just simply putting this into the simple words like something has happened, we need to act on it. But just consider the scenarios wherein we have a business critical kind of an application. So something is happening, we need to quickly act upon it, and we need to provide with the resolution, or we just need to go ahead and start rectifying those. Okay, so in that case, probably we will not go ahead and start using this pull kind of a mechanism, because in the pull kind of a mechanism, what we can do for the pooling of the mechanism is like, probably we can have 1 day of time interval defined. So probably at 12 midnight we can go ahead, try to search for all of the audit logs, but just kind of an watch the scenario, like maybe at 12 2 in the past midnight someone start doing some kind of an malicious activities. So you will be able to get to know that after 1 day, right? So obviously this pool mechanism has got its own drawback in that case. But only thing is like, you don't need to invest in any of the infrastructure. You can pull the data from the audit logs whenever you want. But for example, for the real time event handling, probably this is not the best approach to go ahead with. All right, so the other kind of a mechanism that we have got is push mechanism. So let us discuss more about this push mechanism.
So the Microsoft Graph enables the developers to consume the user information stored in Microsoft 365 in custom applications. So the data is retrieved from Microsoft Graph through a REST API or using one of the various native SDKs provided by Microsoft. So in this session, we will explore how to work with the change notification, the webhooks, and the track changes, the Delta query in the Microsoft Graph. So one of the benefits of Microsoft Graph is that it serves as a proxy endpoint to all of these other services. So the Microsoft Graph encompasses things such as Office 65, Windows 10 Enterprise Mobility, and Security EMS, and it brings all of these different services under one unified point, that is the graph.microsoft.com. So the advantage to using Microsoft Graph is that it allows developers to just have a single endpoint, a resource, which means you are only going to need a single access token authenticate the different services. So the each service still has its own individual permission so that everything is still secure in an individual way. A single endpoint makes it easier for developers to build applications. So the Microsoft Graph also enables easy navigation of entities and the relationship between the entities. So while there are many different Microsoft 365 services such as OneDrive for files or Outlook for contacts and calendars, so these different entities are related to each other and these relationships are in Microsoft Graph. which make it easy to navigate from one entity to another, even if it crosses different underlying endpoints. So now the next thing is, let's see this change notifications. So the change notification features enables the application to be altered when data is created or changed in Microsoft Graph. So when a particular entity is created, updated, or changed, Microsoft Graph submits an HTTP post to send a specific custom endpoints. So your custom endpoints listens to for those messages and acts on them based on the logic defined by your business requirements. So let's see what you can get the change notifications for. So you can get the notifications on the messages, events, contacts, users, group, conversations, OneDrive files, and the alerts. So this allows you to stay up to date and in sync with data that is accessible via Microsoft Graph. So it also allows you to avoid implementing a polling infrastructure where you can submit a request to Microsoft Graph at regular intervals to get the most recent changes. So instead, you can go back to Microsoft Graph asking for the changes when a notification is received by your application. So this way, you will never miss a chance to get a data is exposed or was accessible via Microsoft Graph. So some of the example scenario are like when an email is received, you want to translate it from its native language to another language and make it easier for the consumer to read that email. Another one is when a new user is added to your organization, you want to automatically create an account for that user in your corporate third party time tracking system and send them an email alerting them that their new account has been set up. And one more scenario is like when a new file is added to OneDrive, you want to take some actions on it. So let's see how this subscription requests work. So your application is notified of this activity by creating a subscription with Microsoft Graph. So the subscription tells Microsoft Graph what entities you want to receive the notification about and the address of your web API to post them to. So the developers must renew the subscription for the notification as needed, as all the subscription have an expiration time associated with them. So if the subscription is not renewed, it will eventually expire. So you will have to keep the track of the subscription and make sure that you renew. So the change notification that your app receives from Microsoft Graph can allow you to track the changes of entities you need to replicate the data in your own system. The next one is the subscription response. So after the subscription is successfully registered, response HTTP 201 created will be returned. And the last one is the manage the subscription life cycle. So the change notification subscription will be valid for a specific amount of time only. And after that time, the subscription is automatically be purged from Microsoft Graph. This means if the application does nothing after creating a subscription, it will only receive the notifications up to the expiration time specified when the subscription is created. To address this, you could have another process on the timer that verifies the notifications are received within the subscription window. And if not, you can assume the subscription has likely expired and needs to be recreated. So the recommended approach is to have one process that handles the change notification and a separate process that creates a monitor, manage, and renews the change notification subscription.
All right. So with that, probably if you're finding it a bit difficult to follow on this diagram, let's get into one kind of a scenario, and from there we should be able to get this more clear. Okay, so let's say for example we want to handle the Teams channel kind of a creation with graph notification, and we are just going to use Azure function. But again, if you want in real scenario, you can also go ahead and use Azure Event Hub as well, which is the more recommended approach than Azure functions. Okay, so all right, so what happens now that probably you want to get notified whenever there is a channel gets created, and for example if the team is maybe a sensitive team, labeled as a sensitive team, in that case we want to specifically go ahead and see like what is happening into that channel, okay, without our users knowing what is happening for them. Okay, so as a business scenario, you sometimes need to hook up to those kind of an event when the channel team channel is happened or team channel is created, for example, or maybe created, deleted, or updated, any kind of an things. So in this kind of an scenarios, graph notification help us to respond instantly for those kind of an scenarios. Okay, so we are going to explore on how the handling of this graph notification when the team channel created event is occurred. Okay, so in this thing, what we can do probably is that we have got or let me just pull up the diagram which can show us how this thing has been implemented. Okay, so onto the screen that you can see that we have got our Microsoft 365 environment, and then we have got major components here. For example, we have got two Azure functions, and we have got Microsoft Graph change notification tracking. Okay, so firstly what happens is that Microsoft we have something called as an Azure function, which is only responsible for maintaining and creating the subscription, because whenever there is an event is happening, we want to go ahead and hook to that particular event. So that's the reason we will need maybe an Azure function in this case to go ahead and get the access token for Microsoft Graph using this Azure Active Directory. Once we get that access token, we can go ahead and create our subscription. And then again, there are various Microsoft Graph endpoints available, and each of them has their own limitation for the subscription. So few of the graph endpoints, they have got some subscription notification for 60 minutes. Few of them has got validity for 1 year, or many more. So based on what kind of an resource that you want to go ahead and hook to, there is a there is an expiration associated with that. So that's the reason we need to go ahead and maintain that subscription as well. So for our scenario, wherein let's say for example we want to handle all the notification when the channel is created, unfortunately that is one of the endpoint that has got the validation only for 1 hour, only for 60 minutes. Okay, so that's the reason within that 60 minutes, if we don't go ahead and renew our subscription is going to end, or it is going to expire. So in that case, probably we can think of maybe creating a new subscription and then work with it. But the main thing is like maybe during that time something happens, we won't be able to get the notification. So from that perspective, creating and maintaining a subscription is very much critical. Once we get the subscription, what Microsoft Graph is going to do is like whenever something is happening onto that resource, so in this case maybe channel is getting created, it will simply go ahead and give us the notification. So to process those notification, we will again need something. So here we have got that Azure function. Okay, so let me just quickly walk you through like what those kind of an notifications that we have got. Okay, so probably this is one of the link wherein you will be able to get the information about the Graph APIs, which can get the change notification. So unfortunately, as of today, not all of the endpoints in Microsoft 365 has got those notification. But let's say, for example, for most of the things like we have got it supported for Microsoft OneDrive, SharePoint for some scenarios, even for Outlook for some scenarios, and then for Microsoft Teams for most of those cases. So here you can see that we have various scenarios covering that for Microsoft Teams. And then again, Teams channel created is one of that. So now that, for example, if we see this, these are the scenarios which are being supported by notification for Microsoft Teams resources. So under which there are a few things for Teams and channels, chats, as well as membership as well. Okay, so in this case, what we can do is we can hook up to that notification, and then whenever something happens, it is going to give us the notification. Okay, so let us see like how we'll be able to achieve this. So as per this particular documentation, this teams slash get channels is the one which can help us to get us all of the notification for all of the changes which are happening related to a channel into your tenant. Okay, so if you read out this clearly, it says that to get the change notification for all changes, for example, create, update, and delete related to a channel in the tenant, subscribe to this notification. So simply what this notification will do is whenever there is a channel getting created under any of the team in your subscription in your tenant, it is going to notify you. And then we can use this kind of a notification to see whether it is a channel that is being created under any of the team, which is probably we want to monitor. Okay, so and we can implement our own business scenarios into the maybe function app, or even you can think of to create Azure runbooks or any of the other things. All right, so the first thing that we need here is the Azure Active Directory app registration. And then again, if you have a look at all of the required kind of an permissions. So here this one says that for this we need an application permission with at least channel.readbasic.all or channel settings.readall or channel settings.read.write.all. So for that purpose, what we have done is we have created that Azure subscription by giving all those application permission. Note that the delegated permissions are not supported here, so that you won't be able to do that with the currently logged in user, but only application permissions are supported. So with that, we are covering the first part, like to have ourselves ready to get the access token, because using that Azure AD app registration, we should be able to go ahead and acquire that access token from Azure function. So the next thing that what we do here is we have this function app created, and inside of this we have got as Azure functions created. So in this Azure function we have got first Azure function for this graph notification subscription creation as well as renewal. So let me quickly walk you through this code. So this one is a PowerShell based code, and the responsibility of this Azure function is to go ahead and hook up for those kind of an subscription. So that means whenever the channel gets created. Again, for example, based on what kind of scenarios you want to go ahead and implement, you can refer to this documentation. If the scenario is being covered, you will be able to go ahead and use that. Unfortunately, no Power BI here as of now. So for the people who are trying to implement the solution on top of Power BI, probably they won't be able to use this solution. But again, if you are very much interested to use it in Power BI, either you can think of using this Microsoft Sentinel, which can simply help you to get all those notification related to the Power BI. All right, so while this one is loading, what we can do is, okay, yeah, this one got loaded now. All right, so the functionality of this particular function app to simply go ahead, renew the subscription, and create the subscription and renew the subscription. So I will just go into the uh, code for this. So in the variables, we are storing just client ID, client secret, and tenant ID of this Azure active Azure application registration that we did. And then what we are going to do is we are going to simply acquire this access token. So this is the access token, step number one that we are talking about. So we are simply going to go ahead and acquire that access token. And then we are just checking like, do we have the active subscription right now into the tenant? So this is the URL, the graph notification URL from where we'll be able to get whether the subscription which with this particular GUID does it exist or not. If in case there is no notification subscription that we get into the from the Graph API, obviously that means that particular notification has expired. So in that case, what we need to do is simply we need to go ahead and create a new notification. Okay, so here we are simply saying that notification not found, and we are going ahead and creating another subscription. Let's say, for example, we get that notification. In that case, what we simply need to do is we need to go ahead and renew that subscription. So this is the Azure function which has been running at a regular interval of 55 minutes, because as per the documentation here, we need to go ahead and acquire our next subscription within 1 hour. So that's the reason we are just giving 5 minutes of buffer so that we can go ahead and renew our subscription. And then again, there is simply a Graph API call itself, which with which we'll be able to go ahead and renew our subscription for another hour. So in this case, what we are simply doing is that we are getting the notification expiry, adding 1 hour to it, and then we are making that expiry added by 1 hour. So that means this is a function which is only responsible for creating the subscription and maintaining the subscription. So now that we have covered around this part, so we have created the notification and we are maintaining the subscription. So what can happen now is that since we are very much interested to go ahead and let me just open up the other function meanwhile, because opening up the function takes some more time. All right, so going back to the explanation, so we have covered number two so far, like creating and maintaining the subscription. So what is happening when we do that? So in that case, what what happening is, whenever there is a event happening, for example, Teams channel created, it is going to give us the notification. So that means number three, and then we can use this notification maybe in our Azure functions or maybe in our desktop-based application as well, to go ahead and hook to that subscription. Or even let's say, for example, if you have your logic apps, even in that logic apps you will be able to go ahead and handle all those notifications. Okay, so this is a function which is responsible for getting the notification. So when the notification will be received, there will be a request as well as the trigger metadata associated with that. So this trigger is going to give us all of the information about what has happened and what is the trigger that we have got. Then again, for example, if you just want to hook up to the something called as a client state, so this one is nothing but kind of an exchanging of token between two entities, so that since all of these APIs probably exposed to the public world, you don't want that someone can just hook to your notification and they can send any information. So this one will be just extra security layer on top of it to ensure that it is only your application or it is only your graph notification it is sending the notification to you. All right, so once you get that notification, obviously it is going to give us the information that we see into the audit logs. For example, client ID, sorry, team ID and team channel that we see. So this is kind of an example of the teams and channels that it is going to return. So once we get that using the regular expression, we can get the team as well as channel ID from that. Once we get that team and channel ID, what we can do is we are free to go ahead and implement our own business logic. So simply in this case, what I'm doing here is that I'm just going and updating the team channel description that this is the channel which is being processed by graph notification. So just to test that, what I will do is I will go into Microsoft Teams and then I will just go ahead and simply create one team. Okay, so I will just create one channel. So I will just call it as a demo channel one, and then probably I will just make it as a private channel. Okay, that's it. So let's say consider that HR review. This is the team that we want to monitor, like everything which is happening inside of this. So whenever the channel will get created, there will be the Azure function which can go ahead and it will trigger, and you can see that it is not even more than 30 seconds I created the channel, but I got the notification and my graph notification was able to handle that. And then we see this description is being updated my graph by my graph notification. Okay, so simply like for example, whenever you want to go ahead and try to hook up to the event, or maybe whenever you want to respond very quickly to what is happening inside of your Microsoft 365 environment, in that case Microsoft graph notification is another way through which we'll be able to do that. All right, so this was the only demo that I had. So hopefully this one explains like how you can go ahead and do those graph notifications. So again, there are some kind of a limited scenarios, probably Power BI is not covered into that, but maybe in the future there might be Power BI kind of an events coming up through. But we just saw like there are multiple ways through which you should be able to go ahead and monitor your environment. Microsoft Sentinel, it is the most recommended way to go ahead, set it up that. Secondly, we have got maybe pooling the mechanism, like we can pull directly from the audit logs. Or thirdly, if you want to act upon it quickly without investing much into your infrastructure, graph notification is another way through which you'll be able to do that. All right, so with that, only 1 minute remaining. I just want to thank you, all of our sponsors, to sponsor this event. Thank you very much for organizing as well as sponsoring this event. And then we have the next session coming up from Dev Chaudhary on challenges in deploying sensitivity labels for files. And thank you very much for listening to me. And if in case there are any questions, I will be monitoring the chat window. But thank you very much for this opportunity. And back to you, Rohit.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Thank you so much, Nandip Smita. It was a nice explanation. So we learned a lot of things today. Yeah. So we'll take a 5 minutes break and we'll connect again.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. All right. So let me just put that link in the chat window for Iago for you. So, all right. Okay, so this is the link in the chat window, but yeah, as of now, it only supports few of the resources, but definitely in the future, Microsoft is going to add few more. Yeah, thanks everyone. Hopefully everyone liked the session, and hopefully you will implement something on top of it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.